8:30, and welcome everybody to the 7th of November 2024 meeting of Te Puna Kōrero. Let's start with a karakia, and Councillor Hayward, can I ask you to lead us, please?
Thank you. Hātiki roto hāki waho, that's all I'm going to say. Toru whā, whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā ki kina te tuta, kia mā tātara ki tai. Ehi ake ana, te atakura, tio he huka, he hauhu, tihei mauri ora.
Thank you very much. At least for lateness. All right, all those in favour? Those against? Carried. Very good. There are no items for public forum. Item 4, conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest that people wish to declare? There being none, we'll move to item 5, notification of extraordinary business. And there are no items of extraordinary business this morning. And so to item 6, which is confirmation of the minutes of the 17th of October 2024 for Te Puna Kōrero. I'm going to move that these are a true and correct record. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Trillin. Are there any corrections to the minutes from people? No. That being so, I'll move the minutes. I'll move that they be confirmed. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. So that brings us to item 7.1 on our agenda this morning, which is the Freedom Camping Bylaw 2025, and we're being asked for an approval to consult. So I'll ask, Kieran, you'll come and talk to us. I assume we've read the paper. I'm going to move it to get it onto the table, seconded by Councillor Ford. Do you wish to say anything first, Nick?
No, thank you. I'll just hand over to Kieran.
Okay, Kieran, thank you. So if you can just summarise what we're about here, and then councillors can ask questions if they wish. Thanks, Kieran. No, I moved the whole thing. Yep.
Morena. So our current freedom camping rules are made under the Reserves Act on reserve land and the Local Government Act on non-reserve land. Most campers that come to Porirua follow the rules, but where campers break the rules on non-reserve land, we have limited powers to respond. The LGA basically just provides the option for prosecution, which generally isn't appropriate for dealing with freedom camping, and so we rely primarily on education. But where there are persistent issues, there is a limited ability for us to respond. The proposed bylaw is made under the Freedom Camping Act, and it sets out where on non-reserve land camping is permitted, what the rules are, and where freedom camping is prohibited. It gives council the powers to enforce rules on non-reserve land, specifically the ability to issue on-the-spot fines for people not following the rules. Officers have worked with Ngāti Toa to understand their concerns around freedom camping and how we can consider those concerns in our bylaw. Under the proposed bylaw, there would be 6 freedom camping sites. This includes the existing sites at Ngāti Toa Domain and Brady's Bay, and there would be 4 new sites introduced at Bedford Court in Cannons Creek, the north end of the Camborne Walkway, Ocean Parade car park in Porirua Bay, and the Terrace Road car park in Tatahi Bay. The Freedom Camping Act requires councils to justify why freedom camping is prohibited. So these new sites are where we have not identified a valid reason to prohibit freedom camping. The reasons given under the Freedom Camping Act are in order to protect a site, to protect access to a site, or for health and safety reasons. We will consider the feedback we receive through consultation and advise you if any new information comes to light that would make us reassess the suitability of these sites. Under the bylaw, freedom camping would be prohibited at Motukaraka Point as the site is significant to Ngāti Toa. The Reserve's management plan will also be updated to remove Onipoto Esplanade Reserve as a freedom camping site for the same reasons. The other options Council has is to maintain the status quo. This would mean that Council retains full control over where we permit freedom camping in Porirua, but it would not address the issues we currently have with enforcement on non-reserve land. The other option is to apply the Freedom Camping Act to all council land rather than just non-reserve land. This doesn't provide any additional benefits for enforcement, as the Reserves Act already has adequate enforcement powers for reserve land. It would, however, require that we introduce more freedom camping sites than the proposed bylaw, a total of 10 sites, and there is a table in the paper comparing the sites under each option. Consultation will run from 21st November to 10th of February. The extended period will give residents ample time to make a submission, and the busy time at our freedom camping sites also means that we will reach out to campers during that period and encourage them to make a submission as well. Residents and clubs that are located near the proposed sites, as well as Motukaraka Point and Onipoto Esplanade Reserve, will be contacted with further information on the proposed bylaw, how they can make a submission, and how they can get in touch if they have any questions. Deliberations will be held in March. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kieran. Now, I'll invite councillors to comment. So first, Councillor Hayward, and then Councillor Duncan, and then Mayor Baker.
Thank you, Mātu Upoko. He mihi ki aku e me he kaikanahira katoa. Thank you, Kieran, for the presentation of this item. He pātai, I raised in the workshop that I was looking for some clarity with regards to how Porirua would sit in the broader Wellington region with regards to the number of proposed sites or current sites compared to the rest of the region. I'm trying to get a sense of whether we are over-supplying or under-supplying relative to everywhere else. It doesn't seem to be in the report, so either you can answer the question now, or maybe when this comes back for the substantive debate, you could incorporate that information in there.
Through the chair, yes, we'll definitely include that when we come back for deliberations, but to comment now, Wellington City, Lower Hutt and Upper Hutt don't have freedom camping bylaws, so rules, and some of them actually charge for, so not freedom camping. The only other council nearby would be Kapiti, and they are currently exploring a freedom camping bylaw, and so they currently have, I believe, around 4 or 5 sites. They are probably looking at more of that, but that was determined by if they actually follow through and introduce it.
So, well done you, Kieran. I wanted to just understand the rationale behind Motukaraka being proposed to not be included as a site, and yet Ngāti Runga around this particular issue, and this was raised in the workshop as well. Where is the threshold here with regards to those two wahi tapu? In my mind, they are both wahi tapu.
Yeah, through the chair. Firstly, Ngāti Toa Domain sits on reserve, and so that is entirely at council's discretion whether or not to allow it. The decision is basically weighing up the size of Ngāti Toa Domain as a current freedom camping site. If we were to remove it, there is a risk that the other freedom camping sites would be overwhelmed, creating an enforcement issue, or council would have to look for another large freedom camping site, which is unlikely to be as suitable as Ngāti Toa Domain. So it is not to ignore the feedback from Ngāti Toa. It is essentially just a decision for council to weigh up whether we want to remove it there or to maintain it as the most suitable freedom camping site in the city.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you.
Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, thanks for the report. It's pretty comprehensive. Good effort. I was intrigued with, in the background, item 6, where it says, while freedom camping sites are often used by homeless people. and it's council's view that freedom camping sites are not an appropriate way to manage homelessness. How do we manage that?
Through the chair. I'm not an expert on that, sorry. That comes from the community partnerships team. I can't comment on the exact approach council takes on that. I think Ruben would like to comment.
Oh, well, you can comment, but it's not actually the subject of our discussions today, but feel free if you want to comment.
Oh, Ruben.
Ruben can comment.
Our community partnerships team take out regular surveys around the community to see what our numbers are. If we see regular people, we work for the enforcement team, often doing early morning checks on cars, and we do follow up with people, and we've got a number of services that we can direct people who are sleeping.
Any other questions, Councillor Duncan? Okay, Mayor Baker?
It was a bit like Jeff. Mochakaraka Point, will it stay in the document? Will we go out for consultation so people actually have their say on it? Because it is a very popular site, and I'd like people to be able to have their say, even if we're going to rule things out later. But is it in part of the document, or are you're just deciding that it's gone?
Through the chair. Yes, so it is in the proposed bylaw as a site that's prohibited, and we are asking a specific question in the consultation around that to get feedback specifically on Motukaraka Point.
Okay.
Is that satisfactory, Mayor Baker?
Yeah. Oh, yep. Okay.
Okay, all right. Councillor Waddle?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for the report, and it's great to see we're look like we're going to be leading the region with the freedom camping bylaw, which is good to see. You alluded to some places in Wellington City that are used for freedom camping that are car parks. So what with the freedom camping bylaw as we going out to consult, how do our car parks, for example, Ascot Park car park or Adventure Park car park, get encapsulated with this?
Yeah, through the chair. Those ones specifically are on reserve land, and so they will sit under the reserves management plan. And the default position in that is that it is not permitted to camp there. The car parks that we have included in this are the ones that are sitting on non-reserve land, and it's the city centre one specifically. And it is at council's discretion to decide whether we do want to open those up for freedom camping. The recommendations we're making are that not to include them as freedom camping sites, but that is at our discretion.
Okay, just supplementary to that. So you say those ones, as I gave examples to, are not permitted, but they're not prohibited?
Through the chair, they're prohibited, but through the reserve management plan as opposed to through this bylaw. I appreciate that for someone that's looking to camp in Porirua, the bylaw itself isn't the clearest way of understanding the rules. So on our website, we'll be making sure there is a more comprehensive way of combining both the bylaw and the reserve management plan to get a good understanding of what the rules are and where you can camp.
No, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Councillor Trillin, who is next, and then Councillor Duncan, you can.
Thank you. So yeah, first question is just around, so I'm just looking at the initial background briefing at 3, a small number of campers are consistently breaking the rules. Most campers in Porirua follow the rules. How significant is this problem that we're trying to fix?
Through the chair. It's the main issue at the moment is at Motukaraka Point. The other sites don't tend to get a huge amount of complaints. And they do sit on reserve land. Motukaraka Point is mostly non-reserve land. It is a combination of people regularly overstaying or too many people camping there given the limit. So I would say it is likely to be a weekly occurrence, but combined with the fact that the residents there are also very aware of what the rules are and complain to council when people aren't following the rules. The other issue is less common but comes up. It's where people camp at non-freedom camping sites, which, if that's not reserve land, council also has limited powers to address that.
And that actually sort of goes into the second part of the question which I had, which was specifically about Motukaraka Point, where it says there's sorry, I've just lost the place where it was. Oh, yeah, here we go. At 29. Archaeological features exposed at Motukaraka Point have been damaged by freedom campers in the past. Could you speak a bit to that?
Yeah, through the chair. So that's feedback is provided by Ngāti Toa. We have not requested from them evidence of the damage. The legal advice we received is that the site being significant to Ngāti Toa alone is enough of a justification for prohibiting freedom camping there. But we'll be encouraging them to make a submission themselves so they can speak to their concerns. If that evidence would be useful in deliberations, we can try and get some more clarity there.
Yeah, I think that the more evidence we have, the better. I think just in the context of and some of the comments that Councillor Hayward was making before as well about the site being included and others not. From like a snapshot, quick perspective, looking at this, an outsider looking in might think that Motu Karaka Point has been singled out here because there are a lot of very wealthy homes that live in that area. And particularly given that one of the key things that has been highlighted is that freedom camping sites are often used by homeless people, I would be concerned if we're just changing this policy to basically shuffle homeless people away from wealthier areas, particularly given that, and I realise it's not fully within our remit, but if we're not doing anything at the same time to enhance wraparound services and provide alternative solutions to homeless people, I would be concerned by that. So I guess I'm just flagging that as a concern from my perspective. I'm happy for this to go to consultation. I think it's good that we go and consult on it, but I guess just indicating now that I'm a little bit uncomfortable, I guess. So it looks like was Wendy
Josh,
going to...
I'm just going to let Wendy, I mean, these can come out in more detail when we get the consultation information back, but Wendy would like to comment on.
Yes, we got some early advice about Ngāti Toa's concerns across the city, including Ngāti Toa Domain and Motu Karaka Point. And I was particularly concerned myself about the sort of basically excluding the most popular sites for freedom camping across the city. So I made a time and spoke to Ngāti Toa myself about that. They were more, as it turns out, Ngāti Toa Domain is our most popular site. It's the biggest site. It's the most suitable camping. And they softened their position, after we'd had the conversation about Ngāti Toa Domain. Some of those same issues don't exist at Motu Karaka Point. We don't have the same facilities available, and our water supply is dependent. It's not a public water supply, so we rely on a local householder for that water. So actually, it's they're not the same in that sense. But I just wanted to reassure you that it's the advice that you're receiving has nothing to do with the wealth of...
No doubt that the process we've gone through is a rigorous one, but I am conscious, particularly if that's where we've received most of the complaints from, there might be a correlation there in terms of people who are more actively aware of those rules, and I'm just concerned around the perception as well. I guess the main thing for me is that if we go through consultation, we come back and we vote on this to come into effect, what I would want to see as part of that is some clear indication and some action around how we are going to manage the fact that homeless people are using this as an option currently. And the reason for that is obviously we don't want homeless people around the city. No one wants to have homeless people, but homeless people do exist. And I think if we are just passing something that is potentially going to be used to move them on from places that they are currently relying on, what is going to happen to those people? And I realise we can't fix that problem, but we can engage with agencies that potentially can. So I would just like to see something around that. Thank you.
Okay, I noted, Josh, but I also note that this is about freedom camping, and homeless people is a separate issue which we should raise as a separate issue. But I understand the interrelatedness that you're trying to the point that you're making.
Yeah. And
Point of order. Perhaps it would be useful to advise Councillor Chun that this was covered in great detail in the workshop that's available online as well, in terms of the issues around homelessness, because it was actually written in greater detail in the briefing notes around that particular challenge, and it might help in terms of the debate for next time to read that, to watch through that, and then come back.
Thank you,
that.
Councillor Hayward. Let's just not get diverted now, that's all. All right, so Councillor Duncan, you heard next, and then Councillor Philo.
Yeah, I got the impression reading through this paper that to actually be able to enforce what we're doing, we're going to need extra staff. Is that case?
Through you, Chair, I think that's a question for me. No, it's not the intention to increase the numbers of staff. It will be the intention to work more efficiently with the staff we have. So we're looking at prioritising and actually how to use technology to our advantage more to balance the parking enforcement and the freedom camping enforcement.
Yeah, thanks for that. One other one about the damage to middens. Are they actually, I mean, I wouldn't know what I was looking at if I was looking for a midden. Are they signposted, or how do we know that they actually exist there?
I have absolutely no idea, but
They're not signposted, I can tell you that much.
signposted. I think we can ask for that information to come back when to make the decision, because there's no evidence there that there's only hearsay that freedom campers have damaged this, and it also says that banning freedom camping there is unlikely to adequately address the risk of damage to the site. So we probably need a bit more information in that area. Okay, is that all right? Right, Councillor Philo.
What can you just remind me what the current numbers or sort of annual numbers are for freedom campers in our city?
Through the chair, I don't have a count of the number of unique campers per year. Last year, when we did a site review, we were averaging about 18 per day at Ngāti Taua Domain, but of course, the length of stay would mean that it's not going to be 18 unique people each day, and then around 2 at Motukaraka Point, and less than 1 at Onipoto and Brady's Bay. So over a year, I'm not sure what that works out as, but on day to day, that's what you'd expect to see at those sites.
So were those the numbers you used to determine around Ngāti Taua Domain? If that got completely restricted, it would overwhelm those other sites?
Through the chair, yes. There's obviously, it's hard to tell how people would respond if we were to get rid of Ngāti Taua Domain, but if all those campers were to still stay in Porirua and use the other sites, there would be a good chance that they would exceed the limits if they chose to park at our other sites anyway. So yeah, it's a unknown what it would mean, but yeah, the huge amount of our capacity is at Ngāti Taua Domain.
Right. Okay. Regarding what Councillor Trillen was raising, at Motukaraka, are the complaints that you've received, were they general freedom campers, or were they homeless people?
Through the chair, it's difficult to tell from the complaints because the people making the complaint don't always differentiate that this is a homeless person, this is a freedom camper, but anecdotally from reviews done ourselves, a lot of it is genuine freedom campers that are just staying longer than permitted, or there's a 3-vehicle limit there, so sometimes people will turn up late and just park anyway, and that's difficult for enforcement because if an officer goes out to look at it, they don't know who was the last one there. So yeah, it is definitely, there is an extent of genuine freedom campers not following the rules at Motukaraka Point.
Okay. And thank you for clarifying. Yeah, I've got a couple. Thanks for clarifying about your discussion with Mana Whenua, Wendy. Just wondering, are they aware of sort of where we've landed in terms of those sites that they were, those sites of significance that they've spoken to you about?
Through the chair, yes. So they've seen a draft of the bylaw, that one that's going out, and again, we'll be encouraging them to make their own submission.
Consultation.
Yep.
Okay. So just moving on, can you remind me of the reasons? You mentioned before that for some sites they have to we have to put them through because they don't meet a reason for them not to be there. You mentioned cultural significance was a reason why they couldn't. What are the other reasons why they why we would restrict?
Through the chair. So the first distinction I think to make is around reserve and non-reserve. So the reserve land is not being dealt with through this bylaw, and so on reserves, the Reserves Act gives council full power to just decide where to allow it. So the question is around the non-reserve land, and that's where it'll fall under the Freedom Camping Act, and it sets out that you can prohibit freedom camping in order to protect a site. So if you think freedom camping would cause damage to a site, to protect access. So there are sites that we have decided not to include because other users are already using the site to an extent where freedom camping would unduly impact them. And the other one is health and safety. So if you don't think it's safe for campers to be there, you can prohibit it.
Do you take into account things like if they are directly in front of like a childcare centre?
Through the chair. No, we haven't. I'm not aware of other councils that for unduly using some considerations when ruling out freedom camping sites. So there is a risk if you are too strict around what you rule out.
Oh, well, I'm just looking at the one on Bedford Court where those 6 are parked. It is directly inside of where the children play, like the back of the area. So, I mean, that could come up for consultation. And just my last question, sorry.
That is fenced, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is fenced, yeah.
Carry on. Sorry.
My last question was just around the timing of the consultation. Do you think from November to February that you'll get that's like a good amount of time or the time of year to get, good outcomes? And
Yeah, through the chair. And generally, we do avoid consulting over the holidays, but as we're starting end of November and then going through to Feb, should be hopefully adequate time for any residents concerned to make a submission. And as I said in the paper, we're going to specifically reach out to anyone that is living near a site to hopefully make sure they are very aware that this is happening and that they can make a submission if they're concerned.
okay, cool, thank you.
That's it. Are there any other questions, councillors? Councillor Ford or no? Can I just ask that when we come back, particularly around Motukaraka Point, the issues, for me, it's like closing the stable door after the horse is bolted. Given that there will be a demand, if we take it as it is now, there will still be freedom campers turn up there. What are we going to do and how are we going to handle that? Because this whole freedom camping thing is a cost borne by ratepayers for people from outside the area. Now, there are benefits of doing it, but, we will, as ratepayers, pay the costs of policing this. So particularly addressing how you would see Motukaraka Point in terms of us banning freedom camping there and how we would handle that. So I just asked that. Are there any other questions then? I'll ask again.
Just
Mayor Baker?
to reply to that, there's a lot of locals that use that site. An
I
awful lot.
wasn't saying it was all from outside people. Absolutely not. There's a high proportion of others that use the site, but a lot of them are other travellers as well. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll now put the motion for us to go out to consult as it is laid out in the paper. All those in favour? We are talking about option 3. All right. We're talking about option 3. Sorry, was that not clear? Well, all right. That was assumed in the thing that we are talking about option 3, which is the recommended option. Yep. Which all our discussions have been around. Okay. All right. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. We'll look forward to it coming back. Thank you, Kieran. I'm now going to move. That brings us to the end of the main part of Te Puna Kōrero, the meeting. So I'm going to move a motion now to go into public excluded. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Mayor Baker. All those in favour? Those against? Carried.